Hello. Wanted to share with you about a Hebrew word that I learned about a couple of years ago, and I was very excited and I wanted to really um, share it. And it's normally, if you look in the concordance, the H stands for Hebrew, 853, which is the Aleph-Tav. Hebrew, remember, when you're reading Hebrew, it's from right to left instead of the way we write, left to right. And when I did this search on my Bible phone app, it gave me a little under 200 references of that. And I thought, oh, great. So I found them and I printed them out. And then I went to Bible Hub. There's over 11,000 in the Old Testament of the Aleph-Tav. That is the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And when I did some more research, I got in deeper because 852 is also Aleph-Tav. They have a feminine. Where do I start? The Hebrew language drastically changed while they were in Babylon. So if you understand the biblical history or the actual history of Israel, the nation of Israel, when they were taken away to Babylon, their alphabets changed. It became, what we see today. They quit speaking Hebrew for a long time. And technically, when Israel became a nation again in 1948, that's very recent history compared to what's in the Bible, there's a lot of words that they think they know the meaning of, and this is one of those weird ones. A lot of times it's not translated, and sometimes it gets translated as an A-N-D, as a conjunction, sometimes as a them, sometimes as him, sometimes as it gets connected with another letter, even though it still remains this Aleph-Tav. Like you can find this reference, and I'll show you, along with another Hebrew letter, and it becomes a different word, even though it remains 853. But it's also 854. And this one can get translated as against, among, before, by, for, but it's still this word. And 855, again, and this one is now masculine. The 852 was feminine. It's how they're put in there. And this one gets translated as coulter and plowshare. There's a 853A. That's always a plowshare in the Strong's Concordance. 853B gets translated as you, feminine singular. 856, which has these additional, but it starts with the Aleph-Tav. It's a proper name, et bal, which means with ball. 857, I'm still learning my alphabets, and I don't, besides Aleph-Tav and some of the B, bet, I'm still learning, and I don't know them. And this one gets, in the King James, it gets as come and bring. In the NASB, it's come, bring, came, past, things that are coming, a foretelling. 858 is, again, it has another letter, and it means bring, come. Just, I don't understand the distinction between that one and 857. And 859, and it gets translated as you. Now, there is another word in Hebrew for you, and it's not spelled this way. But like I said, there was something in the transition and trying to make sense of all this. Now, I did add this, even though I'm not looking at it, but 860, it gets, it's a donkey, a she-ass, a female donkey. And I included that just to show how I'm not sure how, the whole translation. And obviously, if I don't even know the Hebrew alphabet, who am I to try to discern this incomprehensible word? I have asked on a gosh, I can't remember. I think it was a YouTube thing, and I asked a rabbi about this. And I'm going to give you the first example, but in the Bible where it gets used, but he just says it's just not translated. They don't have a meaning for it. Now, Jesus said he was the Alpha and Omega, which are the first and last letters of the Greek letters alphabet. And here he is, I believe, in the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, to show you Genesis 1:1. Now, what I ended up doing is using Bible Hub and going to their translation page. I literally went through every single one, and instead of just going to the ones that said, just doing a search on 853, I was able to look and see if there was any others. And I decided to do this format where I copied it in the Hebrew, and so you're reading it from this way. And they kind of think Yoda on, I know, Star Wars, and how he spoke kind of backwards. So in Hebrew, the created in the beginning, we're used to hearing in the beginning God created. But in Hebrew, the verb comes before the subject. So it's backwards. It's to us. Created God. Now, I know it's Bereshit, and Elohim is, the God. And then the unknown word, this et, or et, depending on who you talk to. And here again, it's in there, and it's got this other letter, and it's pronounced wet. Pardon me if I'm butchering it, but I don't believe that letter is supposed to be there, and I don't believe the thes are there either. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but somehow, and initially, and this is why it's probably what I say it means or may mean will change, because when I first saw this, I thought, I didn't realize there was a second Aleph-Tav. And I thought it was Elohim et. God, what we would say the Trinity plus Jesus, Yeshua. This language, gosh, this is why my desire to learn Hebrew is so important to me, and other things keep coming up like this. I mean, I don't know if you can see how big this is. Each one of these tabs is a chapter in Genesis. I literally went through the entire book of Genesis and reformatted and made these pages for me to understand these things by. And over here, it should be, may mean, that et, and then this letter here is kind of like a hyphen. You know how in Spanish they would connect last names with the E, which is the letter Y to us, and it's pronounced like you would say Smith Harrison, where someone hyphenated the last name and combined it. In English, we just have a hyphen that we don't pronounce, but in Spanish they put the Y and normally the wife, the mother, the female, will take on the husband's name along with her birth name, maiden name. So anyway, there's something here that got changed, and they just put the et with that letter and made it an and, but it's there, and it's before earth. So both times this et, Aleph-Tav, was put before heavens and before earth. There's something connecting God in the creation, and how, 1 John 1:1, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So these are the earlier ones. I had difficulties recognizing it at first, but now my eyes just get drawn to that Aleph-Tav. I was highlighting, and then I realized I just need to highlight the Aleph-Tavs, and I bolded wherever there was God, Yahweh, Elohim, El, and like here it is 4 times. And it's not necessarily God hyphen et, Aleph-Tav, it's to the lights, to the and it's interesting. What gets, like here it gets translated as them, but by adding that other letter to it. And I don't think it's correct. They did the and thing again, but I believe this is connected. There's a connection. And I saw a pattern, and again, not a Hebrew expert. I don't even know the alphabets yet, but I do know patterns. I can see patterns, whether it's in English or something else, but especially when it's able to transcribe it or give me a translation more accurately toward what's in there. So I, in this book that I've made, got the Hebrew, and then have the King James what King James translated it, and then how it's actually said. So created God et man, ha-adam, in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. But this has the et and oto, male and female, he created them, otam. So the Hebrew letters are absolutely amazing. And Chuck Missler had stated, if you can learn the Paleo, the alphabet before they changed it to what it is here in Babylon, like the first letter of their alphabet, Aleph, some scrap paper, was an ox head. Now, that looks familiar to us because that Aleph becomes our letter A. But in Hebrew, it becomes kind of looks like an X, but it's not an X. It's a line and then a little. And in script, it's written like this, like a K. If you're handwriting, you don't write it like it's pictured here. I once had a doctor that wanted a letter typed in Hebrew, and when I told him I could do it in WordPerfect back then, I had the Hebrew alphabet into the keyboard. And then when he handed me the writing and I looked at I couldn't see the similarities. They were totally different. And he ended up having to type it himself, and he kind of enjoyed it. It was fun for him. But and he was sending the letter to Israel to a colleague, and he just found it great that he could actually get it printed and looking very professional. But originally, the Hebrew letter A started out, and it stands for it's ox's head, which stands for strength. And then the Tav, and again, we're going the opposite direction, was an X, and it looks more like a stylized N, lowercase n to us in the English alphabet. And if you understood what the letters meant and how it was drawn, Bet meant house, the letter B in Hebrew. So when you have Ab, this, and Bet, it meant leader of the house. Abba, father, man. The letters themselves, when you could understand what the letters were, even if you never saw that word in Hebrew before, you can figure out the definition by what the letters are in that word, because each letter had a meaning that went into that definition. So, when you have Ab, father, you got the leader of the house. You got the strength of the house, which is supposed to be the father. So I find this fascinating if it's that detailed, the patterns. And one of the first patterns I saw is that most everybody that got named, let's go this chapter, get past Cain and Abel. So we're in chapter 5. And most everybody that gets named, let's go back to Cain and Abel, sorry. Yahweh, God. So here, when Adam and Eve were first named, they did not get the Aleph-Tav before their names. But everyone pretty much after them gets an Aleph-Tav. Even Cain gets that Aleph-Tav before his name. And this does not get translated into anything. And Eve finally gets one here when she's giving birth, or gets named. And Abel gets named with an Aleph-Tav. And then later on, when it gets into the so-and-so begot so-and-so, that the begotten one gets an Aleph-Tav. And I noticed that pattern right away. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Each person gets the Aleph-Tav. And when it gets to Canaan, Noah and Canaan, that gets cursed, Canaan never gets an Aleph-Tav before his name. Interesting. Also interesting, Tamar and her twins doesn't get the Aleph-Tav before their names, even though that's in the lineage of Jesus Christ, of King David. So I noticed the pattern and where the pattern changes. So it's like you can't say everyone before their first naming in the Bible gets an Aleph-Tav, because they don't. There's exceptions to that. So it's like, so what's going on with that? And then I find it interesting when Esau, I can't remember what chapter that's in. That's much further. When Esau sold his birthright, the let's see, I want to find it. I should have planned this a little bit better, but here it is. Turn right to it. Almost. Yeah, not where it shows up is very scary in some ways. But before that Esau despised his birthright, and he sold his birthright. Oh gosh. That I'm overlooking. I'm not fine. But the Aleph-Tav is before the birthright. So when it says it despised his at birthright, something with his Messiah was in there, and he didn't care. It was not important to him. And the more I study, I've been reading Genesis annually for over 30 years, and I'm still like, how did I miss that? And now putting the Aleph-Tav into the study has really, really fired me up, but it's also slowed me down. I've gotten so, because I got obsessed with just literally, I'm going through Bible Hub and going verse by verse through the entire book of Genesis and looking for any of the 852s to 859s to see and put that in here. And then I even had things down to almost a macro, which wouldn't work in my, couldn't get the macros to work properly, but I got it to do this. Let's see, I think I put in, no. I had a little piece of paper that showed do it in this order, so I would copy over all of this and then had to delete this one column and do this other column, and Control M to remove the tables format that got copied over. But the like here it gets translated you. These are still 853s, and this one's them. From verse to verse, it's in so many of the verses. I had to stop. I had stopped myself with just doing Genesis, and I'm updating my Bible notes that I keep in my own personal Bible. I will make another video about that. But I just found this fascinating how, this gets and again with that letter at the beginning of Aleph-Tav, even though it is still 853, and they do have like over here and that's a different word, letters, and some of it, because the way Hebrew is spoken differently and how we speak English, there's added words for us to make it grammatically correct, and also just to make sense. And they're just trying to put the at wherever they can make it make sense to them. But let me see if I can find that. I'm trying to get each verse onto one page. I had to do different formattings. I wanted everything to have lines so I could have room to put my own notes. I made this so I can just cut it and paste it, and that was kind of crazy. And what I will do is actually put that into my digital that I printed this out. So since I printed this, I've gone back and highlighted all the Aleph-Tavs that's up here. So like that would get a highlight. But I was changing things as I was going along to make it easier to understand. But the where it shows up is very, very important. And how that importance is, I can't actually say. Because like in Genesis, 1:1. This is just too thick. I may rebind this in another format to make it easier, but I wanted something that I could take in and out of. So like in Genesis 1:1, I initially thought it was connected to Elohim, but when I saw the second one and realized that the connection is between God and heaven and God and earth somehow. What does that mean? I don't know yet. I'm still trying to decipher this, and I am going through Genesis with my new Bible. Get back to the beginning of this one too. I printed this out and spiralized it, and I wanted to have a, this is a very detailed look, and this is a very macro look. Step back, see the trees, see the forest, vice versa, how it's used. And I'm using only the purple pen, and I try to put the Aleph-Tav, but I can't always get it small enough. So I just started using like an asterisk or star, and then I ended up just putting a purple dot where it's supposed to be. And a lot of times, because how we do our verbs and subjects, that this Aleph-Tav is between God and heaven, because God is actually here, created God, the heavens and the earth. So using that as a linkage, so I don't have to put a star or asterisk or anything. That purple line shows that the Aleph-Tav is between those words in the Hebrew, and to get a better understanding of why. And I hope to publish this. I formatted the King James, and for journaling, for note taking. This is just for my personal use at this time. I get into these projects, and this one's in 3 volumes. But I'm just excited about learning that. Yeah, and I was told before, when studying the Old Testament, if something doesn't make sense, to put Jesus in there. I'm sure they had no idea that the Aleph-Tav, that Jesus may be in that. So I'm looking forward to going through my old notes and questions and see if the Aleph-Tav is in there and where it's at, and how that may affect the meaning of that verse. What do y'all think? Are y'all excited about this? Did y'all know about this? I'm probably late to the party. Not that's a normal thing, but this has just got me really on fire to it's a puzzle. I love puzzles. And I am seeking after God. I'm, again, not a expert in English, much less Hebrew. I don't even know the whole alphabet, but I find this so fascinating and so intriguing that I just got to share. What do y'all think? Remember, be a blessing and be blessed.